Everybody, welcome back to the Beyond the Peloton podcast. I'm Spencer Martin, host of the Beyond the Peloton newsletter. I'm here with my co-host Andrew Vontz from the Choose the Hard Way podcast at betterlab.io. We are going to talk Vuelta España. Who's going to win this slow motion, the slowest unfolding GC race I've seen in a long time, as well as a few other hot topics. But Andrew, do you want to plug anything before we get going?
Yeah, Spencer, I know you and I have talked about this a bit, and I've actually talked to a lot of listeners of Beyond the Peloton about this. So personally, I've been using sleep sensors and sleep wearables, recovery wearables since 2014. And I'll tell you what, the main thing they've done for me is they've made me more anxious and neurotic about my sleep. If you've ever looked at your sleep or recovery score, I know that you know what I'm talking about. And working with some of the world's top experts and practitioners in sleep and behavioral science, what I've discovered is that actually improving sleep takes action. It takes small, simple actions that you do every day. That's what works. What works is what you actually do. And that's why I co-founded the Better Lab. The Better Lab helps you mindfully build science-backed practices to sleep better that stick. We've got an app. It just takes a few minutes a day, and that app is live and free in the Apple App Store right now. Please go check it out, download it, shoot me a DM at HardwayPod. Let me know what you think, and you can also learn more at thebetterlab.io.
It's a noble pursuit. These little steps you're talking about, I'm doing the opposite right now. Like little steps to destroy my sleep. So I need all the help I can get. But Andrew, you just sent me over a list of topics. This is very good. All things I've been thinking about. But the Vuelta, to give people an overview, Vuelta España stage 19 is going on right now. I'm actually watching Tour of Britain stage 3 at the moment. But the race is close in theory, right? I'm just looking at the GC. Ben O'Connor's leading, 5 seconds back, Primož Roglič. Enric Mas, 125, Richard Carapaz, 146, and then David Gaudu out of nowhere, off the top rope in 5th at 348. But after that, I separate that you have the serious contenders 1 through 4. I would even say 1 through 3. And then you have the non-serious. Like, I don't think the fact that Carlos Rodriguez is 4 minutes down, like, it's for a reason. He's not going to get in a breakaway on stage 20 and drop everybody. But has this race been exciting? This is something that has been plaguing me every day. I am actually having a hard time getting excited about it because it feels like it's happening in slow motion. And it's stuck in this is it's technically good, I guess, because you get fun battles in the breakaway, but it's this Grand Tour rhythm where you have 2 races going on. You have the breakaway contesting the stage, and then you have the GC group that's just sitting there because Decathlon AG2R does not want the race to be harder. They're holding, like, Ben O'Connor is holding on with his fingernails as he's sliding down the side of a building. He's just been slowly losing this 4-minute lead over the course of 2 weeks. So they're not going to pull the brake back. Red Bull Bora doesn't care because Primož Roglič is effectively leading this race. He has nothing to win by being aggressive. Enric Mas is Enric Mas. I mean, Movistar's been trying to make it hard, but they can't pull the breakaway back. Richard Carapaz has EF, the team EF. I mean, they were good yesterday, but they're not going to pull the brake back. So it's just been this. It reminds me a bit of the 2023 Giro d'Italia, if you remember that, where Primož Roglič and Geraint Thomas kind of just rode on each other's wheels for 2.5 weeks while the breakaway contested stages. And then Primož Roglič won it in the final time trial, which is, I think, what you'll see here. Like, have you enjoyed watching this? Have you been excited watching it?
I don't know. It reminds me of like the Nibali Tour de France victory year. You know what I mean? Like,
at least that was a blowout. At least you got to see someone destroy other people.
Yeah, totally. Just some of the mega trends that have emerged during the Vuelta this year are worth examining. I think the one that's foremost on my mind is teams trying to totally curb stomp their own leader. I mean, we saw this with Mikel Landa yesterday. O'Connor, you know that's what's going on. He's leaving the team. They have a GC rider that's going to replace him. And O'Connor, as we saw on Tour de France, Heart of the Peloton / Unchained, maybe not the mentality you have to win a Grand Tour, but this is a bizarre trend that you have someone on your roster and you're actively undermining their ability to win the race. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't understand it. because just even the logic of, let's say, Ben O'Connor is leaving the team. You saw this with Demi Vollering at the TDFMs. Like, Demi Vollering's leading the team, therefore we don't want her to win. But why? That's a team win. Like, they don't take the win with them. And the team keeps the points. Like, Decathlon's in no position to sneeze at points. In fact, do you know the last time this team finished on a podium at a Grand Tour? It was the year 2017 at the Tour de France. Ben O'Connor, he's not going to win this race. I hate to spoil it. He's not going to win. He's got a very good chance of finishing on the podium. That is massive for the team. Here to give you a little background on the team. It has looked like anarchy. Like, for example, I think what probably you're pointing to the most is Felix Gall just riding away from him on a summit finish. Hey, buddy, I'm riding for my own GC. I think the next day, Felix Gall loses like 7 minutes. Like, well, classic. What happened there? And I was talking to a former Tour de France winning director who said, if Felix Gall wins the day after that, he would fire Felix Gall. Like, this is the worst teammate in the history of teammates in this man's estimation. But it's ridiculous, I think. And I mean, Valentin Parapantra has been amazing for Ben O'Connor. Like, he's really helped them in some sticky situations. But I don't understand it. I mean, you see, like, I guess Soudal Quickstep has been pretty good for Mikel Landa. I mean, Mikel Landa's problems extend far beyond his team. The fact that he's potentially sick or something, the fact that he got dropped yesterday, that's not healthy. Mikel Landa does not get dropped in that climb. But then another concerning trend I've noticed is everyone, and I worry this is a look into the future, because let's say we're going to the year, we're spoiled. We have Tadej Pogačar. Hey, I'm just going to drop it down 3 gears and ride away from the Peloton. And that's what he does, like, at every race. Jonas Vingegaard can do the same thing in certain races. Remco Evenepoel can do the same thing in certain races. When they're not present, what I'm concerned is happening is everyone's stuck in a blob because everyone's fitness is roughly the same. And no one can ride away from each other because they're all getting the most out of their bodies. Like, everyone's optimized their training so they can hit 6.5 watts per kilo on 20-minute to 30-minute stage finishes. And when you have a bunch of summit finishes like this Vuelta does, it's just the mountains are not a place to make a difference. You can only lose time, like Ben O'Connor. There's a blob of GC riders at the front. And then if you're having a bad day or you're Ben O'Connor, you're off the back trying to limit your losses. And I think that's what a lot, like when Tadej and Jonas and Remco are not firing on all cylinders, and Wout and Mathieu van der Poel are in their rocking chairs at age 35. Like, I just kind of fear that that's what cycling is going to be like. And you're going to have no-name riders winning from the breakaway, because we can talk about that in a second. It's a little bit of a strange trend there, but I don't fully understand that. But, it's cool that Equipo Kern Pharma is winning all these races. And I do think there's a lesson to be learned there. But, I was watching the Tour of Britain yesterday, and you have like, or 2 days ago, and you have like Remco Evenepoel, Julian Alaphilippe, Stevie Williams in the move, and they're battling it out. And then you turn on the Vuelta and you're like, who are these people? What is going on? Why is Steven Kruijswijk attacking to win a stage? I didn't realize he was still a professional rider. So it comes with like almost a bit of sadness that I watched this race. And I know it's technically supposed to be exciting. There's a mountain stage going on right now. There's a hard stage on Saturday, a time trial on Sunday. Anything could still happen. You have to say it because it's logically true. I just don't believe it. I think Primož Roglič has these guys right where he wants them, and he's gonna, he's like a tap-in specialist now, and he's gonna tap in his second consecutive Grand Tour win in the last 2 years, or like second consecutive tap-in win, if that makes sense.
Now, Spencer, first I want to acknowledge some bias here. My mom's grandparents were Slovenians who emigrated to Pittsburgh, Kansas, where they were coal miners. So with my Slovenian heritage, I'm a diehard Primož supporter, as many people who listen to the podcast know. And the other thing that's really high in my mind right now is I am looking back at 2023, and I'm just thinking about what could have been. GC Kuss, where's your God now? Yeah. Well, and I have to say, like, I love Sepp Kuss. He seems like an incredible human being, one of the world's best, if not the best, climbing super domestiques, stage wins and Grand Tours, Vuelta victory. when we look back at that 2023 victory now, though, and when we consider this year when Primož wins, and I have to take a moment to acknowledge that I did call Primož for the win in this race. And there's also a non-zero chance he finds some way to crash.
Yeah, right. It feels so inevitable. Yeah. I guess technically he could not win. It's a very good chance.
Yeah, there is a chance. There's always a crasher's chance that Primož doesn't win the race. I think he will, though. So let's say he takes the victory this year. He ties the all-time record with 4 wins. You just have to think about what could have been, because he was the stronger rider last year and he could have won the race had his team actually supported him, going back to this mega trend of your own team actively trying to curb stomp you when they know you're exiting and leaving your contract at the end of the year.
The only thing, my only pushback on that is I'm not totally sure he could have beaten Jonas Vingegaard, who was so strong at the end of that race.
Well, hold on. However, that was kind of the dance within that team. Was the agreement was Primož was all in supporting Vingegaard and the other, at the Tour, with the agreement that like he would have the support at the Vuelta, and what he got instead was being told to go sit on the bench, basically.
Well, then Vingegaard kept attacking. Yeah, this doesn't get remembered. Like Sepp would be in the yellow or red jersey, Vingegaard would attack, and then it was awkward because it's like, well, we can't chase our teammate, so he was gaining a lot of time, like soft time, you would say.
Yeah, killing me softly, Vingegaard.
I'm going to answer your question in 2 parts.
All right, do it.
Sepp Kuss. Is this like one of the worst title defenses you've seen in a while? Like comes back as defending champion, no debilitating injuries. Like he's not run into a bus. He's not an Ineos. Sitting in 12th, 9:45 back. He's in hell. This is hell because you're not getting anything out of this in terms of GC. Like he's almost 5 minutes behind 10th. So is he going to finish 10th in the top 10? Probably not. Does he care? Probably not. Like what is 10th place when you're defending champion? He can't get in breakaways because he's Sepp Kuss and he's fairly close. 9:45. They can't give him 5 minutes because then Pavel Sivakov, UAE will start chasing to salvage that 9th. Mika Landa will start chasing to salvage that 10th. Schelmoza will chase. Lippo, probably not Red Bull. Ineos will chase because Rodriguez is there. So he can't get in moves. He can't stay in the GC group. He's going to get absolutely nothing out of this race. And to add something to what you just said, I'm sure your families are talking about this at dinner every night. But if Primož wins this race, it's a Slovenian sweep of the Grand Tours. That's never happened before. So that's big for the Pittsburgh, Kansas community, the big Brutus riders or whatever they call the coal miners down there. And another thing is, so Visma wins all 3 Grand Tours last year. They're not going to wear a leader's jersey, like a race leader's jersey, in any Grand Tour this year. That's, with all due respect to the team, which is run fantastically and has had a good year. And, it's a little crummy because they probably would have won the points and the KOM jersey in 4 stages at this Vuelta had Wout van Aert not crashed. But that's disappointing. They got to be disappointed with that. And the biggest thing about Visma, so you go to obviously the Jonas plan at the Tour was pretty good. He did pretty well. He looked like he might win the race for a minute. But the Giro and the Vuelta, what was the GC plan? Looking back, was it seriously Udo Brooks, who's clearly not ready to be a GC contender in a Grand Tour? And Sepp Kuss, I mean, as you say, like, all due respect, love the guy, loved an American won the Vuelta. He's not that guy. When he's not in the breakaway and gaining 6 minutes in a break and then trying to hold it off, we call that the Ben O'Connor. He's just not able to consistently stay with the top riders on mountain stages. And he's never been that guy. And he loses tons of time in the time trials. So you just kind of wonder about, I mean, clearly actually the team misses Primož Roglič. Like what I'm describing is they miss a second GC contender that can go to these Grand Tours and compete for them and win them when Jonas Vingegaard's not there.
Yeah. And it's not just the results themselves. I'm sure you've noticed this, Spencer, and it's really jumped out at me. If you go take a look at the post-race interviews with O'Connor in particular, and you think about how he speaks and his mindset relative to Vingegaard coming off of his near-death experience at the Tour this year. And every time he was interviewed, even though it was pretty clear he was going to lose the race, he had an extremely positive attitude. He projected confidence, and it was always some version of, yeah, whatever. Like, hey, Jonas, you're 5 minutes down. Like, what do you think? I think I've still got a chance. Like, no matter what.
I think I got him right where I want him.
The guy always, like, whether he thought it or not, he always projected confidence. He always had a positive mindset. And I think he truly believed that he could win versus O'Connor, where we see, he gets roughed up a little bit. And does he not have the physical ability to do it? Perhaps. I don't think it helps to share that with the world, that lack of confidence, because I think his competitors are seeing these clips on social media. It's giving them greater confidence to attack him and destroy him, and probably gives his own teammates who are actively undermining him even more leash to do what they want to do, which is not support him.
He's been holding on pretty well. I'm actually surprised at how well he's holding up, because you're right, he's getting attacked and dropped almost every mountain stage. Like we saw yesterday, EF and Carapaz tried to attack him in the middle of not even really a mountain stage. Like they just seriously thought they could drop him. He did get distanced, but come on, like you're going into a climb like that with a group that big. This isn't juniors. There's groups behind. What are you going to do? Hold him off for 45 kilometers with like 4 people rotating through? Like that didn't seem like they were living in reality. I was a little confused by that, actually, even how beautiful it looked. Beautiful. I was confused because today and tomorrow are where the differences probably could be made. Kudos to them for thinking outside the box. But with Ben O'Connor, just to give you like an anecdote about how bad this team support is. So he finishes the summit finish at Covadonga on stage 16. It's miserable. You can't see anything. It's all foggy. It's rainy. You're stuck on a summit finish. And that's where the podium is. Talking about miserable, by the way, you finish, your team bus isn't there because they can't fit it up on the summit finish. You have to sit up there in the rain. And if you're not the winner or a leader, you have to ride back down. That stinks. And you have to ride back down into oncoming like cycling, like into an active cycling race. But he thinks the podium is at the bottom of the climb. So he just gets up there, turns around, rides straight back down the climb. He has like, team helpers there. Like if you go to a professional bike race, the moment someone important crosses the line, there's like a body man on him. And there should be a chaperone for doping control, because you can't let that rider out of your sight. Ben O'Connor finishes on stage 16. Where is like the support from his team? Like he should have a soigneur coming up to him like, hey, water. And then you tell them everything like, hey, the podium is over here, team bus is over here. There's just no one there. He's unsupervised. No doping control, and he just turns around and rides down the mountain, that is like there's not supposed to be any gap in, you're always supposed to have eyes on someone after they finish and before their first doping control test. So actually, I found that interesting that maybe I thought it was more stringent than it was, but there's clearly riders getting away from the chaperones and being unaccounted for. Then he was just gone. They're doing the podium without him. He has to drive back up the mountain to do the like podium ceremony. Like that's probably not what he wanted to do, but he was not happy about this. I think he felt like maybe someone from the team, a person who just finished a brutal stage, a massive summit finish, obviously isn't going to be thinking straight. Like I'm just shocked there's not a soigneur right on him. What do you need? This is where we are. This is what's going on. And he's just kind of unsupervised, no team help, trying to figure out where he's going. I thought that story told a lot about the type of support he's receiving from the team. But the team, even to give you more information on that, used to be run by Vincent Lavenu. He's the guy in Unchained who's like, hey, this isn't an intra-Australian championship. We can't not help Jai Hindley. Ben, come on, get over it. He ran the team for years, like founded the team. The team recently was purchased by AG2R, the insurance company based in Paris. The team's based in Chambéry. It gets bought by, or maybe Grenoble. It gets bought by AG2R. 2 years later, they fire him. It's like, as you know, Andrew, from your time in the corporate world, that's not super unheard of. They fire him. There's not really any, like the insurance company is running the team right now from Paris. So you would not say there's like an on the ground, soft skills, professional team presence, like professional team management expertise there. So that potentially explains some of the chaos that's going on and why Felix Gall would say like, yeah, I'm just going to ride for my own GC. I can go to these Parisians and say, hey, I got fifth at the Vuelta. give me a bigger contract, and they don't even know that I left my teammate because they don't watch cycling.
And what a huge waste of energy for Ben O'Connor going through that.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, my. Yeah.
I mean, that is not optimizing your recovery. That is the opposite of marginal gains. It's the worst possible thing that could have happened to him during a very high stress, intense Grand Tour victory pursuit. So like that's really about as bad as it gets. It's heinous. I would expect something like that to happen. Yeah, that's like the kind of mistake I'd expect Ineos in 2024 would make.
Oh, well, yeah. Should we just, I've got some. So have you heard like Ineos? Not great. Like Steve Cummings has been banished because Tom Pidcock doesn't like him, but they won't say that. The team, everyone's leaving the team. Dan Bingham left. Dan Bingham is now working at Red Bull Bora because he said they just didn't support. I don't know if you read this interview. It's kind of interesting.
I couldn't believe some of the things that Dan Bingham said on his way out the door. Like not the things you typically would say about your previous employer in a high profile context. But he basically said Ineos is not on the cutting edge. They're not doing the things that they need to do. This is base tech. I'm peak tech. I'm out of here.
We should say he's an aerodynamist, very famous. I think he was at Jumbo Visma, kind of overhauled their TT setup, went to Ineos. His claim to fame, there's all these people on Reddit. Reddit is a funny community.
Set a world record, hour record.
Yeah, so
he himself set an hour record, then he helped Ghana break his record.
Break his own hour record.
He's an Olympian. He nearly won a gold medal, but they missed out on that.
The way he his resume is, I'm a good aerodynamist. Trust me, because I'm very like average physically, and I have the hour record, and I go to the Olympics in track cycling. So you have to trust that knows what he's doing.
I'd like him to transform me. I'd like him to transform me into a world-class talent.
I fear it's going to be a lot of stretching, as you
yeah,
always
you're right.
mention.
Yeah, you got to stretch a lot. Yeah, I mean, that's Tom Brady. That was Tom Brady's whole secret, right? Pliability and 180 liters of water a day or whatever he was doing.
And throwing around a flat football. That also helps. And then also illegally scouting the rival team's practice the week before. But
marginal gains.
But did you catch this where he was really upset because he wanted time off. He wanted support for the Olympics. They kind of don't get back to him. They eventually get back to him and say, we'll give you 3 months unpaid to go to the Olympics.
Oh my God.
I didn't think that was like an amazing amount of support.
That doesn't seem very European to me either. I feel like there must be some labor law.
They're not in the EU anymore.
Oh, okay.
They're off on an island doing their own thing.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
I mean, not to crack this open, but there is maybe it's been halted because the Tories just got gutted. But after Brexit, it's like, there's a section of the UK that wants them to become more like the US, where you can just fire people left and right, and it's unchecked capitalism.
Well, I just again, I'm thinking about tech world here, but I am wondering what protections for labor exist in the UK versus the EU, and then I thought about, are the data protections the same? Because I remember going through the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation shift that happened a while back, and they've retained that in the UK as law, but it's independent of the EU framework. Very interesting for anyone out there who's in trust, safety, privacy, and tech. You know what I'm talking about. Anyhow, yeah, I mean, that's brutal. Again, I think this is a classic example of there's a dispute between management and labor. They should have kept it quiet and been professional, had nice things to say to each other as they parted, and instead, just another example to me of Ineos not handling things very well. This isn't a professional way to handle a high-profile, highly valued employee who contributed to a lot of your success over the years departing. That's not the way you do it.
Yes. And here's my hot take on Ineos. We should say, with Carlos Rodriguez having a very good race, Carlos Rodriguez is a very good stage racer. I don't think people are prepared for Carlos Rodriguez. He is David Gaudu. When you think of Carlos Rodriguez, think of David Gaudu. He's that level. That's fine. That's not a rider that can anchor a 60 million pound a year team. That's just not acceptable. How did it get? You look at Ineos' roster, and I know our Lantern Rouge friends, Patrick and Benji, they love a lot of these guys. It's They're saying names, and I'm like, I swear you're using a random name generator. Like Ben Turner. Who is Ben Turner? Like they're always like, who's going to be the star of the future? Ben Herter, Ben Turner, Ethan Hayter. Like these guys just are straight up not that good. Ethan Hayter right now, PCS ranking for the year, 298. Ben Turner, PCS ranking for the year, 253. Like these are just league average riders. Then you look at their young guys. They have 4 young North Americans that are very good. Michael Leo, Andrew August. Here, I'll do it by age. Andrew August, Theodore Storm. He's Danish, so he's probably going to win the Tour. Michael Leonard, Canadian, and Artem Schmid, Magnus Sheffield. They're either Canadian or American. Andrew August, 18 years old. Okay, Andrew, you're 18. You're tiny. He is 57 kilos. Gets to the World Tour. He's 18 years old. His 4th professional race is Paris-Roubaix. What the hell are they thinking? Like, it just makes me think like there's no one running this team. There's no one running. Like Dave Brailsford is running Manchester United. How does that happen? I don't feel like enough was made about it. People were just kind of like giggling like, 57 kilo 18-year-old doing Paris-Roubaix. That's so disrespectful, I feel like. And the problem is a lot of these guys don't get better. I mean, almost everyone at the team doesn't get better. You look at Magnus Sheffield, good rider. I don't think he's any better than he was the first year on that team. You look at his PCS ranking year by year, 83, 99, 69. So he's roughly the same as he was when he got there. And he's 22. He's burning the best development years of his career on this team. It's like a talent eating machine. It takes in talent and spits out less good riders than when it took them on, which is a huge red flag. You wonder, so how were they ever good? I mean, I do think a lot of the stuff Brailsford implemented, like cooling down, training, hiring a swimming trainer to train people who's not a dumb cyclist who thinks plants steal your oxygen and you shouldn't be around them. Those were all good. I do think a lot of their success looking back was having a pipeline of British riders that were Bradley Wiggins, Geraint Thomas, and I guess a Kenyan rider, Chris Froome. That helped a lot. It also helped that they were coming from the track. It also helped they were the first team, and I think they accidentally realized this. You can take a big boy like Bradley Wiggins, strip him down of all the extra weight, and guess what? He's putting out big watts. Guess what? He's going real fast up climbs. It's actually not rocket science if you think about it. They tried to dress it up as some sort of like, we've cracked some code. It's like, no, you've just figured out that more watts equals more speed. And that is cycling now. Like Tadej Pogačar puts out roughly the same watts, maybe a little more as Bradley Wiggins. He just happens to be 20 kilos lighter. But that's not a lasting advantage. And those guys all got old and they all retired and they all moved on. And they clearly can't fend for themselves. There's one agent that signs everyone on the team. They have no like development or recruitment staff. They just hire everyone that's on this agent's payroll. It worked for a minute, but if this agent isn't having the best riders in the world on his payroll, they're not going to get the best riders in the world. It's a sloppy team, and it's kind of always been a little sloppy. I mean, think they had a policy where they tried to put it in paper. Obviously, it's not legal where you couldn't have a significant other if you're going to work for the team. Like that's not serious behavior, in my opinion. That's a bit kooky, a bit like that's not living in reality. And I kind of wonder if the strand was always there and it's only now showing because they don't have the top GC riders in the world.
To be clear, I would still take a pro deal on a Grenadier, which I always thought it would be vaporware. Now that they're here, they're really cool. Saw a lot of them when I was out there in Boulder briefly. A few of them right out there in front of the Scratch Cafe, Whole Foods parking lot. But yeah, things have gone off the rails at Ineos. And with the Bigham departure, another thing that kind of perplexed me, just within the context of high performance in sport overall, Dan is advanced. He is a very advanced practitioner of high performance. I follow this closely. I'm in touch with a lot of people in professional sports and also special warfare who work in high performance. A lot of the things Dan was doing that became public, particularly in relation to the Ghana hour record, were very cutting edge. I was just surprised he wasn't brought into the Man U fold, because I feel like he has methodologies and knowledge that would be beneficial across sport, not just within the context of cycling. Seems like a huge talent. People, other riders seem to like and respect him. He's an elite athlete himself, and I think can relate very well to the world-class athletes that he's working with. And whatever it would have cost to pay that guy 3 months while he went and tried to win an Olympic gold medal would have been well worth it. So yeah,
pension pennies too, trying to cut 10 million pounds from the payroll. So
yeah.
Well, on the Man U question, that's not a world-class organization. Those are not world-class players.
That's why they need Dan.
I don't think he wanted to go. I don't think he would have gone.
Okay.
The team's a mess. And then if you say, hey, do you want to come work in the Red Bull F1 infrastructure? Like that probably was a little more appealing to him.
Yeah, that's true. All right. So Spencer.
All due respect to Manchester United fans listening to this.
Yeah. Somewhat related with Kern Pharma, who they could have been a drone hopper at the Vuelta. Instead, we're seeing them take some stage wins, and we're seeing a rider emerge who seems to be a massive talent. I know you're a Moneyball guy. Like, you are the authority on sports analytics as it pertains to cycling and finding hidden talent. How is it that Kern Pharma is able to perform and have this level of talent, these breakthrough performances? And I'm going to make an assumption here that might be way off base, given what we just discussed, and at times the lack of professionalism and the lack of a quantitative and reasoned approach within these World Tour teams. But are they doing enough to actually scout talent? And are there diamonds in the rough hiding in these second, third tier teams? Are there more Riley Sheehan's out there waiting to be discovered that somehow are not getting surfaced, even though we have all of these open source methods like Strava data to find world-class talent now?
Yes. Pablo Castrillo from Kern Pharma shows that. Like, the guy won 2 stages. The second one, stage 15, he just outstrengthed 2 professional Grand Tour GC riders, Alexander Vlasov, Pavel Sivakov, on a summit finish. It helped that he didn't have to take a pole all day. That never hurts. And then Urku Barada wins yesterday on stage 18. I bet on this man to win on stage 11. I stood to win $250,000 had he won, and he got 5th. I'm like, Urku, you won the wrong stage, man. You guys never would have heard from me again. I'd just be in the Maldives living on that $250, but that I didn't pay taxes on. But they clearly are doing something right. I mean, we should say some of this is a little suspicious. You're like, you've won 1 race all season as a team, and then you have a 26-year-old who's never won a race in his career, Urko, he kind of handily won that stage yesterday. But we should say a lot of strong riders got called back from the break. So, and as I said, I don't want to rag on him, but like, he's beating Steven Kruijswijk, who's a shadow of Steve. Like, the guy can't even, he's getting dropped on minor climbs at this Vuelta. So he's not the Kruijswijk that we know and love from losing the Giro d'Italia. But on their strategy, they're clearly getting really good riders. And they are a really well-run team. I heard they're the most professional second division Spanish team. But here's the big thing that helps them.
They're the UHC of second tier European teams.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But they fish where the fish are, right? I think they're based in the Basque Country. So you're getting amazing riders. Spain in general has a lot of amazing riders. And then here's the double thing. Spain has a lot of good riders. They have 1 World Tour team, Movistar, that's not particularly well-funded or well-run or successful. So you have a big talent pool. You can sign them. That's great. It's a stable team, signs a lot of good riders. Here's where they took a bit of a risk. They clearly didn't focus on any other race this year. They knew they had the Vuelta invite. They said, that's what we're going to do. But what you see with like Drone Hopper, this is really popular with the French teams. You go really hard for the French Cup. So you're crushing these lower level races all year long. You get to the Tour, you're shattered because you've gone so hard to win these French races.
Interesting.
Part of it's strategic because you need to keep the till of UCI points up, because if you fall out of the top 30, I think this is a new rule next year, you can't go to a Grand Tour. So you could be, can this be right? UCI ranking. Oh, Israel Premier Tech's Academy team is 31st. So even if an organizer wanted 2 Israel Premier Techs, they couldn't they couldn't invite them to the race because they're not in the top 30. I think that's partly what killed Rally, because Rally was not inside the top 30. So what's the point of funding the team that couldn't even get an invite to a Grand Tour? So if this doesn't hit, and so Kern Pharma's whole season was built around this, and you saw a lot of these riders were not that great until late July, early August. Like at Volta Burgos, Urco was amazing. So they're kind of building into the second half of the year. They're bet it all on the Vuelta, like all of it. If they don't perform here, they're actually in big trouble points wise, but the bet paid off. They're currently sitting 27th in UCI points, and it's great. I mean, three stage wins, that's tied for the most of any team. And then to put into perspective, they have more stage wins at the Vuelta this year than Movistar has in the last 4 years. And they're also outperforming Ineos, who has the budget that's 10 times their size. So also here's what helps. It's what we talk about with the Root Hoofs all the time. They're just so focused. They're not calling riders back from the breakaway to help some GC rider who's going to finish 7th. They're just focused on the stage win. So it's like extreme focus, just like good management, good organization in the team, a deep talent pool that doesn't have a lot of options, especially like if you're a young Spanish rider. Yeah. It's not like France where there's so many teams and they kind of get like fanned out. There's probably too many teams, like too many top level teams in France. They get fanned out, diluted across these like Total Energies and Arkea, where they're probably getting some of the best riders in the country. Like Pablo Castrillo is probably one of the best Spanish riders at the moment. The big question I have for you is why was he not on Ineos 3 years ago? Like how are big budgeted teams missing out on these riders?
Yeah, that's where we started. That's my question for you.
I mean, potentially it's just cultural. I don't, I hate to keep ragging on Ineos, but you look at this, it's like Summit, and you see this in soccer a lot. A lot of these, let's say you're Ineos, you're British, you overpay for mediocre British talent. Like you look at some of these riders on here and you think, what have they done lately to deserve getting re-signed? And if you don't have the agent connections in Spain, you're not valuing those riders the same way. You're not getting those riders. I mean, it probably goes back to a lot of inefficiencies in the way riders are signed. It's like the team manager knows an agent who then serves up 4 young riders and they sign them, and they don't actually evaluating performance. And you figure it's easier to let Kern Pharma do it. Let them develop the rider. We'll sign them when they're good. That's changing. I talked to Matt White from Jayco Alula recently, and he said now, like it used to be, you could just wait for Pablo Castrillo to break out and then sign him. But now you got to get people when they're 17, 18 years old. I would go to Spain. I don't quite understand why. Like if I was running a pro team, I would just be spending all of my time scouting young Spanish riders before they get scooped up, because clearly there's a lot of talent there.
All right. My mind's going in 2 directions right now. So I'm going to drop a breadcrumb. We're not going to go there, but we are going to come back to it. The breadcrumb is Marc Soler. What's going on? Cliffhanger. Cut to, while we're talking about talent development, Spencer, we didn't have this on the agenda, but did you know that the UCI Cycling Esports World Championships begin today on MyWhoosh?
I did not.
Yeah. So
if we talk about MyWhoosh, are we unregistered foreign agents? That's my question.
So my coach, Zach Nair, he's the guy who writes all the power analyses for Velo News and other publications, who's kind of the first person to pioneer that form of power-based data storytelling in depth, and also a highly accomplished pro athlete himself. He's competing. He's also a MyWhoosh employee. So, I'll be coming back probably with the lowdown on this event from Zach, but it does make me think Esports World Championships, Strava, we have all of these open source methods now for talent identification. We also, of course, through Zwift Academy and other forums have seen that talent does not always translate onto the world where you have to interact with other humans. And we do have some examples of it working out, such as Jay Vine. So keep an eye on the esports worlds. I am curious how high this rises, and I really am enjoying the battle between MyWhoosh and Zwift to be the platform at the center of connected cycling. And I'm fascinated by, and I would be open to trying the Zwift faux bike that has the the like unicorn fork. It's just like a single like pogo stick thing that you balance on. I'm not sure how that works out inside. Let's go back to Mark Soler. What's going on?
Well, I think these are all connected. So it's what you said about like, so talent identification on Zwift. It's like, wow, this guy is amazing. He puts out amazing watts. He has no soft skills whatsoever, no interpersonal skills, no ability to like read people, interact with the breakaway. He's riding 5 meters off the back. Like that's how you are not successful despite having world-class numbers. Mark Soler is a world-class talent who is a strange man. I mean, at times he'll spend entire stages riding 5 meters off the back of the breakaway. Why? Like nothing he does makes sense. Marches to the beat of his own drum. You're just seeing, and you're seeing at this Vuelta how talented he is because their GC just went into the crapper. You know, they have to get in the breakaway every day. That's great for Mark Soler, but you know, if Tadej Pogačar is there, he's working for Tadej. So a little bit of it is you're just seeing how good he is and how like good Pogačar's support is and why no one can do anything to attack these teams because they have some of the world's best riders on the front. But Soler could win today. Like we're podcasting during, probably not because it's not, I'm just looking at it, it's not a breakaway. So he's not going to win from the GC group, but really good rider, just doesn't have the soft skills to be a, like, I guess GC contender, but is a world-class stage hunter.
All right. So as we were talking about this, I just did a quick search because the behavior is quite strange. And I started to think about, is this potentially crash related? Because we have seen riders behave differently after they're involved in a major crash. Many people might not remember this, but Soler was involved in the infamous Ale Opi Omi crash at the 2021 Tour, and he broke his elbow and wrist in 3 places. And actually, I think he broke both elbows and he broke a wrist. I mean, that's, you know, you're going to remember that. You're going to remember that one. So that was like just like a classic JRA, just riding along. And then the next thing you know, you're on the ground with 2 broken elbows and a broken wrist. The vibe that I get from what I know about World Tour cycling is that particularly, you know, at some of these more traditional teams, these riders perhaps are not getting the psychological aftercare that they need after incidents like this happen. And I wonder if actually maybe he has really bad PTSD and he's afraid to ride close to a group based on that happening.
Could be. It's what's weird is like you see him at other races when he's working for people, no problem at all. But maybe he has got to bury that because he's working for people. I do have to run. It's late, but here's one question. Someone just reached out to me last night. We didn't cover this. Wout van Aert out for the season, tragically, tragically. Yeah. Someone messaged me, it's time for you and Andrew to talk about how bad of a bike handler Wout van Aert is. I have to push back on that because I'm pretty sure he's a 3-time cyclocross world champion, which you're probably a pretty good bike handler if you do that. Yeah. He does crash a lot, but I mean, just think of the 2 most recent ones, Dwars to Vlaanderen. That was due to a Serbian rider just kind of like coming out of the gutter and riding into a bunch of people.
So weird.
And this one, the problem is he was too good of a bike handler. You know, Felix Engelhart slides out, best way to crash in the rain. Wout doesn't go down. He keeps it up. You know this feeling like, I got it. He stays up. The problem is he stays up right into a rock wall and then really injures his knee. So my zag on that is he's too good of a bike handler. And if he just would have slid out, he would have been fine.
Yeah. And I know you've got a split. We should probably do a deeper dive in a future episode about the medieval infrastructure that we're seeing on the road in Europe. Just with that crash, for example, yeah, he hit a rock wall, but also there was a curb or drainage ditch on the side of that road, quite similar to the one we saw in the mega wreck earlier in the year with Jonas Remco et al. And it was a quite deep ditch, and it was filled with rocks, which I'm sure there was a reason it was filled with rocks.
They don't do this in Colorado in the road. They build these roads and they just get destroyed because the water just flows down the road every time it rains. And if you get a heavy rain, it'll just wash out the whole road. The rocks are there because when you get dumps of rain in the mountains, then it doesn't just wash out the ditch, and there's something to keep the erosion from happening. It's not so great when there's cyclists going into them. Spain is particularly egregious. They'll have like bollards in the middle of the road. You're like, what is this?
Yeah, ironically, early in the Vuelta, I was quite impressed because it seemed like they had a lot of new safety measures in place. We haven't seen at other Grand Tours to let people know, hey, sharp curve coming up. They had a lot of signage. They have flashing lights. With this stage in particular, maybe they just, they didn't anticipate the rain. Can't anticipate that. And the descent.
It is like one of the rainiest parts of the world where they're racing. So.
Okay. Well, I just, again, this like goes back to, is the Vuelta a tier 1 event, or is this just like a bit more of a free for all? They had great infrastructure at the beginning of the race, safety infrastructure. I thought, wow, like the UCI has leveled up, and then we have people flying into ditches and where you can probably anticipate that happening. So Spencer, I know you got to get on the cargo bike and get things moving. When we come back next time, some new safety measures at Gravel Nationals that are quite interesting. It'll be exciting to talk about that. I'd love to do a deeper dive on satellite riders. Such a hot term this year. Does it actually make sense?
Sometimes.
Like let's come back to that. When does it make sense, and when are you just wasting a lot of energy?
Well, that's very good point. That's an interesting point. I do think to the tier 2 race with the Vuelta, it works better when the octane is lower. Like yesterday, it was like, wow, that's amazing. When Tadej Pogačar's attacking and he's blowing by your satellite riders, going 10K faster than them an hour. Wow, that was a lot of energy you just used to send a bunch of riders up the road who are of no use to you whatsoever. So it makes more sense when things are slower. I also love when it's Caden Groves with the C, generational talent or second tier, probably second tier. But that's fine. That's great. You can come to the Vuelta and win a bunch of stages. That's a career right there.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrew. Right. And wait, Gravel Nationals is this weekend, right? Or not?
Yeah. Gravel Nationals is this weekend. If you haven't checked it out,
where is
go
it?
to the Apple App Store, download the Better Lab.
Gravel. If you haven't checked out the Gravel Nationals, go to the App Store.
Yeah. Gravel Nationals is, I believe it's either in eastern Colorado or western Nebraska. It might be. I saw their riders in Scotts Bluff, Nebraska. Beautiful area. I don't know if there's a Runza there, but if there is, I would go to it.
Has to be. And Tim Walz has stepped into this debate, so I think it's fair game. I've got to say, I grew up going to Runza. I think the burgers are better than the Runza.
What?
I love a Runza burger.
Oh, it is in Nebraska. So Nebraska, it's in Gering, Nebraska, which is in the westernmost part of Nebraska. I would love to go ride in this area. And I'm hoping to get out to Gravel Worlds, the Garmin Gravel Worlds in Nebraska next summer, which looked hot and miserable, but the course looked well suited to me. It's rolling. There aren't any giant mountain downhills where you have to go 50 miles an hour on loose gravel, which I don't believe is good for your health.
No alpine climbs.
Yeah. Hey, Gering lies at the foot of the Oregon Trail landmark, Scotts Bluff National Monument, just 40 miles from I-80. Beautiful.
Oh,
yeah.
Right there. It's right there. Yeah. Well, thank you, Andrew, and we will talk soon next week about Gravel Nationals.